They tell us pleasure is the prize. But what if it's just the mask? What if the chocolate, the scroll, the laugh, the lust are only shadows, dressed up to hide something raw, something older, something far more painful? Let me ask you this. When was the last time you felt whole without needing more? Not entertained, not distracted, but deeply, profoundly at peace, untouched by craving. Because here's the truth, we live in an age drowning in pleasure, and yet we are starving. Carl Jung once warned us, the very comforts we chase are often the very walls that keep us from healing. Today, I want to show you pleasure in a way you've never seen it before. Let's begin. Picture this. You wake up and grab your phone. No emergency, no reason, just habit. A reel makes you smile 3 seconds. Then it's gone. Another. The hours vanish into the scroll, but the emptiness doesn't. You put the phone down. Maybe grab something sweet, or salty, or both, and afterward, guilt. Not because you were hungry, but because you weren't. What you really wanted wasn't food. It wasn't even dopamine. It was silence, escape, a pause in a storm you don't yet have words for. Jung saw this clearly. He said every one of us carries a shadow, a self we bury deep, and distraction, pleasure, is the shovel. When you eat but you're not hungry, when you scroll but you're not curious, when you desire but you don't love, you're not choosing joy, you're choosing anesthesia. Here's the hard truth. Most pleasure isn't pleasure at all. It's just relief from self-awareness. But there's a cost. Because every counterfeit pleasure deepens the hunger for something real. And when we don't get it, we believe we're broken. We're not. We're just blind. Blind to how we've been trained to confuse escape with enjoyment. Blind to how our cravings are not solutions, but symptoms. Let me take you back. You're 6 years old. You cry. No one listens. So you learn. Pain gets me nothing but smiles. Distraction, performance. That gets approval, and that approval sticks. So you repeat it, over and over, until adulthood, where pain becomes invisible, but your pleasures become loud. Louder than your loneliness. Louder than your fears. Louder than the small child inside who only wanted to be held. But here's what almost no one realizes. Pleasure has memory. Every time you use it to silence pain, you train your body to fear stillness. Stillness becomes unbearable. That's why you can't sit alone. Why silence feels like punishment. Why even in the shower you need music. Jung knew this. He saw how pleasure, when misused, becomes the enemy of the soul. Not because it's evil, but because it lets us hide. The real enemy isn't pleasure. It's avoidance. Now pause with me. If any of this resonates, if you've ever felt that strange guilt after indulging in something that should have felt good, you're not alone. Comment below what moment hit you hardest, because admitting this isn't weakness, it's strength now. Let me show you the trap. Imagine a wanderer in the desert chasing mirages. Each time they reach one, it vanishes, but they keep running. They believe the next one will be real. That's what false pleasure is, an endless mirage, but real pleasure. It's quieter, it doesn't demand, it doesn't numb, it expands you, it's in a deep conversation. It's in finishing the thing you feared. It's in waking up and realizing you no longer crave what once controlled you. That's the only kind of pleasure worth craving. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And pleasure, messieurs, is the most beautiful absurdity of all. Let's rewind again. You're a child. You fall, scrape your knee. It stings. You cry. Someone rushes in. Here, have a cookie, don't cry. Or, stop crying, look, cartoons are on. That moment stays with you. Not in words, but in wiring. Your brain learns. Pain is weakness. Feeling is punishment. And the cure, pleasure. So you grow. You learn fluency in distraction. And one day, without even noticing, you mistake silence for suffering and craving for love. Pleasure becomes your translator. It speaks when you're too afraid to say, I'm not okay. It dances when you're right, dances too tired to admit, I'm empty. It smiles when all you want to do is scream. But here's what no one tells you. Every time you replace emotion with stimulation, you lose a little more intimacy with your true self. Carl Jung warned, when the inner world is ignored, the outer world becomes louder. And what is pleasure, if not the loudest thing in your lives? The scroll, the buzz, thieping, the binge, they scream so we don't thave to listen. But listen to what is. The ache underneath, the need for meaning, the desire to belong, the wound of being unseen. You see, pleasure is not bad. It's sacred when chosen with intention. Beauty becomes poison when it replaces presence. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt guilty after pleasure? After watching Gone More episode? After texting Sumianu shouldn't have? After buying something you didn't need? After eating one you weren't hungry? That guilt isn't because you did something evil. It's because a part of you knows you weren't really fed. You just avoided the hunger. Shadow work. This is where most people misunderstand Carl Jung. They think shadow work is about becoming darker or edgy, but that's shallow. Shadow work is about looking at the moments you betray yourself for relief and saying, I see you and I choose truth over escape. Let me give you a story. There was a person who couldn't stop chasing relationships. They said they were hopelessly romantic, but every relationship ended the same. Intensity, obsession, crash, repeat. And when a skedwe they couldn't stop, they said, it just love. But that wasn't true. What they loved was distraction, because when they were alone, the silence got too loud. Turns out they never learned to sit with their wounds. Obsession, crash, repeats. Pleasure became the plaster until it couldn't hold anymore. This story isn't rare. It's the hidden story of millions. People who confuse longing with love, scrolls with joy, numbing with healing. And the danger isn't that these pleasures exist. The danger is when we never question why we need them. Here's the myth we need to destroy. Pleasure is not healing. Pleasure is not peace. Pleasure is not power. Pleasure is a tool, and tools, when misused, turn dangerous. Let's flip this around. Think of Thelist. Time you delayed gratification. You resisted that message, that craving, that click, and then later you felt proud, peaceful. Why? Because discipline isn't trust, is the high just. Control, it's self-thrust, and trust is the real high. Because when you trust yourself, pleasure no longer controls you. You choose intentionally, fully, freely. That's when pleasure becomes beautiful agent. Not a drug, not a chain, but a celebration. Now imagine this. You walk into a room, there's no noise, no phone, just you, and instead of panic, you feel home. Not because you have everything, but because you have everything. That's what Jung meant by individuation, becoming whole. Not through denial, not through constant grinding, but through integration, the ability to feel pleasure without seeing it as a bandage. the ability to enjoy silence without fearing it, the ability to be with yourself and like who you're with. That's the goal. But you can't get there by chasing endless highs. You get there by lowering the volume of your distractions and listening to what they were covering up. So, what does that look like? What does that look like noticing when you reach for Thefn and asking, what am I avoiding? It looks like letting yourself feel thought loneliness without patching it with sugar, with sex, with scrolling. It looks like choosing the slower pleasure, the one that takes effort, that demands presence, that comes with delayed reward. Because here's the hidden truth. Real pleasure isn't instant, it's earned. The best laugh is with someone you trust. The best meal is after a long day of meaningful effort. The best connection is after a conversation where you were seen, not just swiped. Let me give you a moment of pause. If this message has shaken something inside you, good. That's what awakening feels like. It's not grand, it's quiet. It's what awakening feels like, and not dramatic. It's decisive, and the decision is simple. Will I keep numbing the achieveth quick pleasures, or will I meet myself fully, bravely, without needing anesthesia? Carl Jung believed that our neuroscience not caused by trauma, but by our refusal to confront what that trauma left behind. What will you do? And pleasure, when used unconscious alliances, we never confront it. But now that you see it, what will you do? Let's go deeper. So here we are. You've heard the warnings. You've felt the tremors of recognition. You've watched the mask of pleasure begin to slip. Now comes the part no one wants to face. The truth that doesn't just sting, it shatters. Because to truly reclaim your life from false pleasure, you must admit something defying. You have betrayed yourself, not once, but quietly, daily, over time. Every time you reached for the fast fix. Every time you said, just 5 more minutes. Every time you avoided the silence best, it whispered too loudly. Every "this isn't shame time," you told yourself. This makes me feel good. When really, it just helped you forget. But listen carefully. This isn't shame, it's awakening. You're not weak for doing what you thought kept you safe. You're not broken for craving. Something that dulled the ache. You were surviving, and now finally, you were ready to live. Because once you see the loop, once you understand that most the real pain wasn't boredom, pleasure was never joy, but sedation, you no longer chase the same things. Therapy doesn't hit the same. The scroll doesn't scratch the itch. The hookup do fill the hole. The sugar doesn't fuel the scream. Because the real pain wasn't boredom, it was the absence of self. Let me paint this in a way that sticks. Imagine your life as a house, and inside it lives your wounded child, your injured truth, your unhealed memory. But instead of entering through their front door to meet them, you build an entertainment system outside. Music, lights, candy, comfort. You throw a party in the yard, while your roadside music, lights, candy, and a child waits unseen. That's what unchecked pleasure does. It builds a carnival outside your house, so you never go inside. But healing, real healing, is walking through the silence, stepping inside the house, sitting with child, and saying, I'm here now, you can speak. That's the work Jung spoke of. He didn't, walking through the silence, want people to become addicted to stillness. He wanted them to become afraid of it, to know that silence isn't the absence of life. It's the presence of everything we've avoided. Now, here's the climax. The final myth that must be broken. You've been told that pleasure is legal, that happiness means feeling good, that the more you indulge, the more free true pleasure are. But freedom isn't about doing whatever you want. It's about not needing to. True pleasure is not thecocolet, not the phone, not the ego stroke. True pleasure is the moment you realize you no longer need to be distracted from yourself. You can sit in stillness and smile, not because it's empty, but because it's full of truths of presence, full of truth, full of offer. You become the kind of person who doesn't chase the high because you'll already carry the peace, and people will notice. They'll say you've changed. You'll speak slower, pause longer, laugh less frequently, but more deeply. And they'll ask, why don't you drink as much? Why are you off your simply present social media? Why don't you text back right away? And you'll smile. Because Ethy won't understand that you're not avoiding anything anymore. That's what scares most people. Because when someone stops needing pleasure to feel okay, they become a powerful, uncontrollably, undistracted, unmanipulable. Pleasure no longer lures them. Marketing does hypnotize them. Addictions lose their teeth because presence has returned, and presence is the purest form of rebellion. Carl Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and who you are is not a dopamine addict. You are not a bundle of cravings. You are not a consumer of. You are a creator of meaning. Meaning is not always pleasurable, and meaning is not always pleasurable. In fact, it rarely is. It's demanding, it's exhausting, it's inconvenient, but it is real, and it will feed you in ways pleasure never could. So, the next time the craving hits, pause. Not to fight it, not to shame it, but to next time the craving hits, ask, what do I truly need right now? That question alone can change your life because it breaks the loop. It hands youth pen. It reminds you, you are not you are the one who chooses how to feed it. So, let me leave you with this. You'll never look at pleasure theism again. Not because it's evil, but because now you see it clearly. You'll enjoy the sweetness of life, still laugh, still love, still enjoy the sweetness of life, but you'll do it with awareness, and that awareness will protect you from trading your peace for temporary comfort. It will make your joy sacred, your relationships cleaner, your habits stronger, and your silence golden, because the pleasure you don't need to chase is the only kind worth having. Asterisk. Thanks for listening.